The desert of planet Eros was always quiet at night. The wind moved softly across endless dunes, whispering through the sand like an old song. Under the deep blue sky, the stars looked sharp and bright, shining more clearly than anywhere else on the planet. A young human named Rin lived there, far from any city or base. He worked as a mechanic and scavenger. His small home was built from old ship parts and broken panels, surrounded by machines that half worked. During the day, he searched for metal and circuits from old crash sites, hoping to sell them in the next trade season. At night, he repaired small drones and cleaned his rusty tools. Life was quiet, lonely but peaceful. Rin liked it that way. That night, as he sat outside near a small fire, checking the battery cell of a broken hover engine, the ground suddenly shook. A deep rumble rolled across the desert. Rin looked up, his hand frozen in the air. The stars above were no longer calm. Something bright and burning tore across the sky, leaving a golden trail behind. It wasn't a meteor. It was moving too controlled, too alive. Then came a loud explosion in the distance. The sand leaped up like a wave, and a short blast of wind hit his face. Rin dropped his tools, jumped onto his small rover, and turned it toward the direction of the crash. "Please don't be another dead wreck," he muttered. He had seen too many ships fall from the sky lately, always empty, always silent. As he drove over the dunes, the air smelled of smoke and hot metal. The closer he got, the brighter the sand glowed orange. Then he saw it. Half buried in the desert floor, surrounded by burning debris, was a silver ship, shaped like a blade, smooth and strange. Its surface shimmered with faint blue energy lines, flickering weakly as if trying to stay alive. Rin parked his rover and ran closer, covering his mouth from the smoke. "Hello, is anyone inside?" he shouted, his voice echoing against the metal hull. No reply came, only the low hum of dying engines. He climbed onto the ship's side, kicking away sparks. The cockpit window was shattered. Through the broken glass, he saw movement. Someone was inside. A figure lay slumped over the controls, armor cracked, and blood glowing faint blue in the dark. The sight made Rin pause. He had never seen a creature like this before. The body looked almost human, but taller, stronger, and with markings like silver veins running along the skin. Without thinking, Rin broke the rest of the glass and pulled the person out. The armor was heavy, but he used all his strength. The alien's body was cold and her breathing was shallow. Her helmet had fallen off, revealing a face both fierce and peaceful, sharp eyes closed, white hair tangled with smoke and dust. Rin gently laid her down on the sand. "You're alive," he whispered. "Hold on," he looked around. The desert was empty, no one else in sight. The ship was badly damaged. Staying here was dangerous. The engines might explode again. So he lifted her carefully, struggling under the weight, and carried her to his rover. The alien's hand twitched weakly, but she didn't wake. Back at his small shelter, Rin laid her on his work table, covering it with a clean cloth. He hurried to find his med kit, an old one mostly made for humans, but it was all he had. He cleaned her wounds with soft cloths, unsure if the same medicines would work. The blood was different, lighter, glowing softly like energy. Yet when he wrapped the cuts with bandages, the bleeding slowed. Her armor had strange symbols on it, like runes that pulsed faintly. It looked advanced, far beyond anything human engineers could build. On her shoulder plate there was a golden mark, a circle surrounded by sharp wings. Rin touched it lightly, wondering what it meant. After a few hours, the alien's breathing grew steady. She was still unconscious, but her color was returning. Rin sat beside her, exhausted, watching her face. "Who are you?" he murmured. "And what were you doing up there alone?" Outside, the wind howled gently against the metal walls. The desert had returned to silence. When dawn came, sunlight spread across the sands, bright and endless. The wreck of the ship still burned faintly in the distance. Rin woke up from a light sleep and turned toward the table. The alien woman was awake. She was sitting slowly, her sharp eyes scanning the room. When their gazes met, Rin froze. Her eyes were unlike any he had ever seen, silver with faint blue fire inside, glowing softly even in daylight. She looked at him, silent at first, then said in a low, steady voice, "You saved me?" Rin nodded quickly. "You crashed. I pulled you out before your ship exploded. You were hurt pretty bad." The alien's eyes softened slightly. "Why?" He blinked. "Why?" Because you needed help, she tilted her head, confused. You do not even know my name. Rin gave a small smile. Doesn't matter. You are alive. That's enough. There was a long pause. The woman looked down at her wrapped wounds, touching the bandages curiously. Your medicine worked, she murmured. Strange. You are human, yes? Yeah, name's Rin, you? She hesitated, then said slowly, Telenra. The word sounded strong, like a title more than a name. Nice to meet you, Telenra, he said kindly. You're safe here. Rest as much as you need. Telenra looked around at the simple shelter, the small tools, and the quiet human who had saved her. She was trained to see through lies, but she sensed no deceit in him. He was calm, honest, and entirely ordinary, something she hadn't seen in years. She could not remember the last time someone had looked at her with kindness instead of fear. Hours passed quietly. Rin worked outside, fixing his drone, while Telenra sat under the shade watching. She seemed curious about everything, the machines, the sand, even the small fire he used to cook. At one point, Rin noticed her staring at a bird that flew by. You don't see many of those on your planet, huh? He asked. We do not have birds, she replied softly. Only machines that serve similar purpose. Rin chuckled. Well, you should see them at sunset. They make the sky look alive. Telenra didn't reply, but her eyes followed the bird until it disappeared. There was something almost childlike in that look. Wonder, hidden under layers of strength. That evening, as the desert grew cold, Rin offered her a bowl of food. It wasn't much, just heated grain stew, but Telenra accepted it politely. You helped me, she said after a pause. You could have left me to die. Rin shrugged. Didn't seem right. In my world, weakness is punished. Kindness is rare. Maybe that's why your world keeps falling from the sky, Rin said quietly, looking at the fire. For a moment, she said nothing. Then slowly, a small smile appeared on her lips. The first one. You speak boldly for one so small, Rin laughed softly. I get that a lot. Later that night, as Rin checked the sky again, he saw flashes of light far away, ships moving fast, searching. Telenra noticed it too. Her face hardened. They are looking for me, she whispered. Rin turned to her. Who? My own people, she said. Her tone was calm, but there was pain in her eyes. They fear me, Rin frowned. Why would they fear you? She looked at him for a long time before answering. Because I am not just a soldier. She turned her gaze to the stars. I am the Empress of the Zeran Dominion. Rin's mouth opened slightly. He didn't speak. The woman he had carried through the sand, healed and fed, was not just a traveler. She was the ruler of one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. But Rin didn't move away. He only said quietly, You should rest, your Empress. Whoever you are, you're still healing. Telenra stared at him, unsure whether to be insulted or touched. Then she gave a small nod and lay back down. For the first time in her long, fierce life, someone had looked at her not as a ruler, not as a warrior, but simply as someone who needed help. Outside, the stars burned quietly, and in that small desert shelter, something gentle began to grow, a fragile thread between two very different worlds. The sun had already climbed high over the golden desert when Rin woke. The small shelter was warm, filled with the soft sound of machines humming. Telenra was still resting, her silver eyes closed, her breathing calm. Rin quietly stepped outside and stretched his arms. The morning light made the dunes shine like waves of gold. He had spent most of the night fixing a solar panel and checking his drone for any signal of other ships. He found nothing. The crash had gone unnoticed, or so he hoped. He filled 2 cups with water from a purifier and brought one to the table where Telenra lay. But when he turned around, he found her sitting up straight, her posture strong, her gaze fixed on the open door. You're awake, Rin said, surprised but relieved. How do you feel? She blinked once, then looked down at her bandaged arm. Better, she said simply. Her voice was steady now, though her body still showed signs of exhaustion. Good, Rin replied. Your wounds are healing fast. Whatever your body is made of, it's tougher than ours. Telenra looked around at his small home, walls made from ship scraps, the floor smooth from sand. Everything was old but clean, repaired with care. Her eyes paused on the small photograph hanging beside the door. It showed a young boy and an older man smiling beside a broken ship. Your family? She asked quietly. Rin's smile faded a little. Yeah, my father. He passed a few years ago. Used to fix ships like me. Talenra looked at him for a moment longer, then said softly, You honor him by building. Rin blinked. That's one way to see it. As the day went on, Talenra began to explore outside. She moved slowly at first, her body still weak. Rin followed her to make sure she didn't collapse again. The desert stretched in all directions, vast, quiet, endless. Why do you live here? She asked suddenly. Rin shrugged. Peace, no crowds. No war, no politics. Just sky and sand. Peace is rare, Talenra murmured, her eyes fixed on the horizon. Too rare. You don't sound like someone who's used to it, Rin said lightly. I am not. She looked up at the sun, her expression distant. In my empire, peace comes after battle, not before. We are taught to earn it with strength. Rin smiled faintly. Then maybe you should try my way. It's easier. Just don't start the battle at all. Talenra gave him a look, half curious, half amused. And if someone takes what is yours? Then I fix what's broken, he said, pointing to the scrap pile. I don't fight for it. She didn't answer but turned away. Still, a small spark of thought appeared in her eyes. In the following days, Talenra grew stronger. Her wounds closed completely, leaving faint lines of blue light across her skin. She spent hours watching Rin work, fixing old batteries, cleaning drone wings, or testing engines. Sometimes she asked questions about human tools, about the way he built things from waste. You repair with little, she said once. Your species is good at surviving, Rin grinned. We're stubborn, not smart. Talenra tilted her head. Stubbornness is another kind of strength. They began to talk more. She told him small pieces of her world. The shining towers of Zirath, the crystal skies, the floating cities powered by energy cores the size of mountains. Rin listened, fascinated. So you're really an Empress? He asked once while repairing a hover fan. Talenra hesitated. Yes, she admitted. But I am not a ruler now. My council turned against me. They wanted a war I refused to start. They believed mercy was weakness. Rin wiped his hands on a cloth. Sounds like you're better off away from them. Perhaps, she said. But they will not stop until they find me. To them, my death means control. Rin's face grew serious. Then we'll need to hide you better. She looked at him, surprised. You would risk yourself for me? Rin shrugged again as if it were nothing. You're my guest. Can't just hand you over to people who want you gone. Talenra studied him closely. In her world, loyalty was bought by fear or power. Yet this simple human offered it freely, asking for nothing. It confused her. It also warmed something deep inside that she had long forgotten. That evening, as the twin moons rose, Rin sat outside with his small radio, trying to catch a frequency. He heard nothing but static. Talenra joined him, sitting quietly beside the fire. She watched the flames flicker, her face calm but her eyes lost in thought. In your world, she said suddenly, how do you choose your leaders? Rin thought for a moment. Usually we vote, or sometimes they take turns. Depends on where you live. Talenra looked confused. Vote? You let the people decide? Yeah, Rin replied. It's not perfect, but at least everyone gets a say. She looked at the fire again. In mine, only the strong lead. The weak follow. That is our law. And do the strong ever listen to the weak? Rin asked gently. Her expression softened. No, she said after a pause. That is why I failed them. You didn't fail, Rin said quietly. Maybe they did. For a long moment there was silence between them. The fire crackled softly, and the desert wind carried fine sand through the air. Talenra looked up at the stars, and something changed in her eyes, something fragile and human. Days passed. Rin began repairing her ship. It was difficult work. The alien technology was far more advanced than anything he had ever seen. The circuits were smooth like glass, and the engines pulsed with strange blue light. Talenra helped, guiding him when she could. She seemed amazed by his ability to fix things without proper tools. You adapt easily, she said. Even when you do not understand. That's how humans survive, Rin replied. We try first, understand later. One afternoon, while working under the engine wing, Rin asked, When your ship's fixed, will you leave? Talenra was silent for a moment. I must, she said at last. If I stay, they will find you. And I cannot let them harm you. Rin sat up, wiping sweat from his forehead. You don't have to worry about me. I've handled scavengers, sandstorms, and broken reactors. A few space soldiers won't scare me. She gave a faint smile. You are bold for someone who cannot even lift my armor. Maybe, but I can fix your ship and you can't. Her smile widened slightly. Then perhaps you are stronger than you look. That night, Rin dreamed of stars. Vast, endless, full of light. He dreamed of Telenra standing among them, her armor shining, her eyes bright. When he woke, he felt a strange feeling in his chest, like hope mixed with something heavier. When he stepped outside, he saw Telenra standing on a dune, her cape flowing in the wind. She was staring at the sky again. They will come soon, she said without turning. Rin frowned. How do you know? I can feel their signal, she replied. My enemies are close. They will track the energy of my ship. Rin walked beside her. Then we'll move it. She looked at him in surprise. You are not afraid? I'm human, he said with a grin. We get scared, but we still do things anyway. For the first time, Telenra laughed. A real, warm laugh that echoed softly in the desert air. It surprised even her. You are strange, Rin, she said, but your courage is rare. Guess that makes us both rare, he replied. Later, Rin covered the damaged ship with sand and metal panels, hiding it from scanners. Telenra helped by projecting a faint shield that blurred energy readings. Working together, they finished just before sunset. When the last light faded, Rin sat down, tired but satisfied. Telenra stood near him, looking at the distant horizon. If they find me, she said quietly, I will not let them harm you. Rin smiled faintly. You already said that, but let's hope it doesn't come to that. Her eyes softened. You speak as if peace is always possible. He looked up at the stars. Maybe not always, but it's worth trying. Telenra followed his gaze, watching the stars shimmer above them. For a moment she forgot who she was. The Empress of a vast empire, the strongest warrior of her kind. Here, under this quiet sky, she was just someone who had been saved by a kind human in a lonely desert. And for the first time in her life, she wondered if kindness might be stronger than power. The following days passed with uneasy calm. Rin continued to work on Telenra's ship, while she spent her time strengthening her body and repairing her armor. The silver plates that once looked broken now gleamed faintly again, as if waking from sleep. But the peace did not last long. One evening, as the sky turned orange and purple, Rin stood outside his shelter adjusting a small antenna. He had built it to detect weather storms. But that evening, the signal began to flicker strangely. A deep humming sound came from far away. He looked up, squinting. Far on the horizon, 3 glowing shapes were moving fast across the sky. Telenra, he called, rushing inside. You need to see this. Telenra stepped out, her silver eyes narrowing as she saw the distant lights. They found me, she said quietly. Rin felt a chill. You're sure? Yes, that is the mark of Zaran patrol ships. They are scanning the desert, he swallowed hard. Then we have to hide, she shook her head. They will find us if we stay. Their scanners are too strong. Rin's mind raced. What if we confuse their scanners instead? Telenra looked at him sharply. How? He pointed at his collection of machines and junk. I've got old engines, batteries, and signal beacons. If I set them around the area, they'll give off fake energy readings. It'll look like there are 10 small ships instead of 1. Telenra stared at him, a bit surprised. You have done this before? Rin smiled slightly. No, but I've fooled sand pirates once or twice. Same idea, just bigger. A small, rare smile crossed her lips. Very well, human. Let us try your way. For the next hour, Rin worked quickly, connecting wires, setting up old engines on the sand dunes. Telenra helped, moving with silent grace despite the weight of her armor. The setting sun burned red behind them as they ran back and forth, hiding fake power sources in different spots. When everything was ready, Rin pressed a button on his wrist device. Small lights blinked across the desert. His decoy network had come alive. From above, the Zaran ships slowed, their search beams sweeping in wide circles. They moved toward one of the false energy signals, then another. It's working, Rin whispered, watching through his binoculars. They're chasing ghosts. Telenra stood beside him, her arms crossed. Your skill is impressive. You think like a warrior, not a scavenger. He chuckled softly. I just don't like uninvited guests. For a few minutes, hope returned. The ships drifted away toward the far dunes. But then a sudden flash appeared, a small probe dropping from the lead ship. It hit the sand and released a pulse of blue light. Telenra's eyes widened. That is a life scanner. It will find any living creature within a mile. Rin froze. Then we need to move. Now. They ran toward the hidden cave behind the old ridge, a place Rin sometimes used to store metal parts. The sand was soft, slowing them down. Behind them, the hum of the probe grew louder. Inside the cave, they crouched low. Rin's heart pounded. "Will it detect us here?" he whispered. Talenra closed her eyes and raised her hand. A faint blue shimmer surrounded them. "This will block the scanner for a short time," she said. "But it drains my energy," Rin nodded. "Then we stay quiet." The minutes felt long. Outside, the faint whirring of the probe passed close, its light shining faintly through the cracks of the cave. Rin held his breath, glancing at Talenra. She was calm, focused, her hand steady even as sweat formed on her brow. Finally, the sound faded. The light disappeared. The probe moved on. Rin let out a breath. That was close. Talenra dropped her hand, breathing harder now. "They will not stop. They know I am somewhere nearby." Rin looked at her seriously. "Then we make them think you're gone." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He smiled faintly. "If we overload one of the fake engines and make it explode, they'll think you tried to escape and died in the blast. They'll stop searching here." Talenra studied him, her expression unreadable. "You are clever, human. Clever enough to survive in a galaxy that does not forgive weakness." Rin shrugged. "I'm not clever, just stubborn." As the night fell, Rin and Talenra prepared the plan. They moved to the far side of the dunes where the patrol ships were still scanning. Rin adjusted one of the fake engines connecting extra power cells. "When this goes off, it'll look like a ship reactor exploding," he said. "Big light, big heat. It'll fool their sensors." Talenra nodded, watching his hands work. "You risk much for me," she said quietly. He didn't look up. "You'd do the same if our roles were switched." She smiled softly. "Perhaps, but no one has ever risked anything for me before." Rin met her eyes. Then they didn't know what they were missing. Her gaze softened. For a moment, silence hung between them, peaceful and strange. Then Rin pressed the final button and the engine began to hum. "Time to go," he said quickly. They ran back toward the cave as the fake engine glowed brighter and brighter. A few seconds later, a great flash lit up the desert, followed by a deep roar. The shockwave pushed the sand outward like a wave. From above, the Zaran patrol ships turned sharply. Their scanners flared with false readings. "Target destroyed," said a robotic voice from one of the ships. "Good," another replied. "Report back to command. The Empress is confirmed lost." And just like that, the ships turned and vanished into the dark sky. Rin and Talenra watched the fading lights from the ridge. The desert was quiet again. "It worked," Rin said with a grin. Talenra stood tall beside him, her armor faintly glowing under the moonlight. "You saved me again," she said softly. "You have done what none of my soldiers could." He laughed lightly. "Guess I'm getting good at this." She looked at him, serious now. "Do you understand what you have done, Rin? You have deceived the strongest empire in this part of the galaxy. If they ever learn the truth..." He shrugged. "Then I'll just have to build better traps." Talenra almost smiled, shaking her head. "You are impossible, and you're welcome," he said. They returned to the shelter later that night. The fire was still burning low. Rin sat down, tired but proud. Talenra stood nearby, silent for a long moment. Finally, she spoke. "Rin, when I was young, I was trained to believe humans were weak. That your kind was soft and fragile." He raised an eyebrow. "And what do you think now?" She met his gaze, her expression calm but sincere. "I think your strength is not in your body, but in your heart." Rin blinked, caught off guard by her words. "That's nice of you to say." "It is the truth," she said simply. "You saved me not because you had to, but because you chose to. That kind of power is rare." Rin looked down at his hands, dusty and rough. "I just did what felt right." Talenra nodded slowly. "And that, human, is what makes your kind dangerous to those who seek only control." Her voice carried a quiet respect, a tone she rarely used. Later, when Rin fell asleep near the fire, Talenra stood outside under the night sky. The stars shimmered across the endless dark. She removed a small crystal from her armor and held it in her palm. It was her command beacon, once used to control fleets. With a silent thought, she deactivated it. The light faded until it was gone. She no longer wanted to be found, not yet. Not until she understood the strange warmth she felt around this simple human. Rin had no army, no power, no title. Yet he had done what her empire could not, shown mercy without fear. She looked toward the horizon where the false explosion had scorched the sand. Then she looked back at the small shelter glowing faintly in the distance. For the first time in her long rule, the Empress of the Zeran Dominion smiled. The next morning, Rin woke to find her already outside cleaning her armor plates. He joined her with 2 cups of water. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied almost cheerfully. "So what now?" he asked. Talenra looked up at the bright sky. "Now I rebuild my ship, and when I return to my people I will remember what you have taught me." "And what's that?" "That peace does not come from fear," she said, fastening the last piece of armor. "It comes from understanding," Rin grinned. "Sounds like something my father would have said." "Then your father was wise," she said simply. The wind blew softly across the desert, carrying the scent of sand and metal. Somewhere far away a bird cried out, flying high across the clear blue sky. For a moment, the galaxy felt small. Just one world, one sky, and 2 beings who had found a strange friendship in the middle of nowhere. The desert of Aros was calm under the early morning sun. The wind moved softly over the dunes, carrying the scent of warm sand and hot metal. Rin and Talenra worked quietly together near the hidden cave, preparing her ship for the journey ahead. Her wounds were fully healed now, the faint blue scars fading into her pale skin. She moved with fluid strength, each step certain and confident. She tested her armor plates, lifting them with ease, adjusting them to fit her perfectly. Rin watched, amazed. "You are fast," he said, adjusting a small energy cell in the ship's engine. "Faster than I expected." Talenra gave him a small smile. "The body remembers its strength. I have been trained to endure hardships that would crush ordinary beings." "You're not ordinary," Rin said, smiling faintly. She looked at him with a hint of amusement. "You speak as if you know the truth of my kind. But even now you do not understand how dangerous I can be." Rin shrugged. "I understand enough. You're still a person." For a long moment she paused, her eyes studying his calm face. He was just a human, a simple man from a quiet world. But he had saved her life, hidden her from an entire empire, and treated her with respect without fear or expectation. That alone was extraordinary. "Perhaps," she said quietly, "the true strength is not always in power or skill, but in kindness." Rin grinned. "You're starting to sound like me." Talenra shook her head, laughing softly. "No, human. I am only beginning to see the world differently." The day passed quickly. Rin worked on rewiring the ship's engines while Talenra helped him lift and adjust the components he could not manage alone. The ship, once a wreck, now glowed faintly with new energy, humming with a gentle pulse. "You will fly far and many will notice," Rin said, tightening the last panel. "Are you ready for what comes next?" Talenra nodded. "I have no choice. My fleet will arrive soon. My people are loyal, but they do not trust easily. They will expect me to be alone, weakened and defeated." "You won't be alone," Rin said firmly. "I'll be here. I'll help in any way I can." She studied him closely. "You risk much for a stranger, a ruler you do not know." "Why?" Rin smiled faintly. "Because helping is the right thing to do. You don't need a reason for kindness." For the first time in her life, Talenra felt a strange warmth, a feeling she had not experienced since her youth. She had led fleets, won battles, and conquered worlds, but no one had ever acted purely out of care for her well-being. Not until Rin. By nightfall, the twin moons rose over the desert, casting a silver glow across the sand. Talenra stood beside the ship, testing the flight controls. Rin adjusted a small energy filter nearby. "They will arrive soon," Talenra said, her tone calm but her eyes alert. "My fleet moves faster than their sensors might indicate. They may already be near the edge of the system." Rin frowned. "Then we need a plan. We can't just hide forever." "No," Talenra agreed. "And hiding is no longer necessary. I will face them. But I will do it on my terms." Rin looked at her, slightly nervous. "You mean fight them?" She shook her head. "Not fight. Prove them wrong. They expect weakness. They expect fear. I will show them the truth." "And what is the truth?" Rin asked softly. "That strength is not just in weapons or armies," she said. "It is in trust, in honor, and in loyalty. Something even my fleet has forgotten." Rin smiled. "Then let's remind them." The next morning, the sky was alive with movement. Tiny specks appeared on the horizon, ships moving fast across the desert sands. Telenra watched, her eyes calm but focused. Her fleet had arrived. Rin followed her gaze. "They're here," he said softly. "Yes," she replied, "but they do not know what to expect." She guided Rin back to the ship where he helped her check the final systems. The engines glowed faintly, the panels shining like polished metal. Telenra climbed inside, sitting in the pilot's seat, her hands resting lightly on the controls. "You should sit with me," she said, "or at least stay close. I do not know what your people would do if I fail." Rin shook his head. "I'll stay on the ground, but I'll be ready to help if needed." Telenra studied him for a long moment. "You are brave, human. You do not belong in this galaxy of war, yet you act as if it is your home." "I guess I just care," Rin said, "and I don't want to see anyone get hurt if I can help it." She nodded, a small smile forming. "Then you are stronger than many warriors I have known, and I am grateful." The fleet approached slowly, dozens of ships flying in formation, their silver hulls reflecting the light of the rising sun. Telenra activated the ship's shield, a faint blue energy barrier that shimmered around her craft. "Stay back," she said to Rin. "I will speak to them first. Violence is not necessary." Rin nodded, stepping behind the dunes, watching as the ships descended. The soldiers inside were loyal to her empire, trained to obey orders without question. But they had not seen her like this, healed, calm, and unafraid. Telenra raised her hand, projecting a signal that reached the fleet. "I am alive," she said, her voice amplified across the communication channels. "I am here and I will not hide." There was silence for a moment. Then one of the fleet commanders responded. "Empress Telenra, you were presumed lost. Your presence, we did not expect this." "I expected your disbelief," she said calmly, "but I have returned. I am not weak. I have been tested and I am still standing. I will lead, but I will not rule with fear. I ask you to trust me, as I have trusted a human who saved me without reason or expectation." The fleet paused, sensing the unusual calm and authority in her voice. Slowly, one by one, the ships adjusted their formation, acknowledging her presence. Rin watched from the dunes, amazed. The small human who had once fixed engines and cleaned old machines now witnessed the might of the galaxy's strongest warrior being recognized not through force, but through courage and trust. Telenra stepped down from her ship onto the desert sand. The soldiers of the fleet approached carefully, expecting either weakness or battle. But she stood tall, unarmed, calm and strong. "Empress," one soldier said, kneeling, "we feared you were gone." "I am here," Telenra replied softly, "and I am not lost. I am still your leader, but I will lead differently. Strength is not in fear alone. It is in loyalty and honor in caring for those who cannot protect themselves." The soldiers murmured among themselves. Some had never heard such words from their leader before. Some had followed her for decades. And now they saw her in a new light, stronger, wiser, yet humble. Rin felt a warmth in his chest. He had not only saved her life, but he had helped change her perspective, giving her a way to inspire her people without fear or violence. After the fleet accepted her, Telenra turned to Rin. "You should come with me," she said quietly. "You have earned a place among my trusted friends." Rin shook his head. "I have my home. I fix things. I don't belong in a fleet of starships." "You belong wherever kindness is valued," Telenra said, "and your kindness saved me and perhaps countless others." He smiled faintly. "Then I'll take that as a compliment." Telenra laughed softly, a sound that blended with the desert wind. "It is more than a compliment, Rin. It is truth." For the first time in centuries, Telenra felt peace not as a ruler, but as someone who had been shown compassion and trust. And for Rin, the quiet human in the desert, life had changed as well. He had touched the life of a galactic empress without even realizing the full magnitude of her power. That night, as the fleet prepared to leave the desert for the stars, Telenra stood beside Rin one last time. The twin moons reflected on her shining armor, and the stars above seemed to shimmer brighter. "Thank you, Rin," she said softly. "You have reminded me that strength is not only in skill, but in heart. That is something I will carry with me across the galaxy." Rin smiled. "Just promise me you'll be careful." "I will," she said, and then she ascended into her ship, the engines glowing with renewed energy. As the fleet rose into the sky, Rin watched silently. Somewhere out there in the galaxy, the strongest warrior had been reminded of what truly mattered. And it had started with a simple human, brave enough to show kindness when it was needed most. The desert returned to silence, but both Rin and Talonra knew that the galaxy had changed. Forever. Weeks passed since the desert encounter. Rin returned to his quiet life on planet Eros, fixing old machines and tending to his small home. Yet every night he looked at the stars, thinking of the silver-armored woman who had trusted him, who had changed because of a simple act of kindness. Life felt normal, yet subtly different. He had saved someone extraordinary. Not just anyone, but the Empress of the Zeran Dominion, the strongest warrior in the galaxy. And somehow, in helping her, he had also influenced something much bigger than himself. Talonra had returned to her empire with Rin's lessons in her heart. The fleet that once demanded fear and obedience now followed her not only for power, but also for respect. She made decisions with care, listening to her council and citizens alike. The once cold and strict empire began to change. Talonra brought aid to worlds previously ignored, built schools and hospitals, and sent peace envoys to planets her empire had once conquered. And yet, she never forgot the human who had taught her the most valuable lesson. That courage, kindness, and trust could be as powerful as any weapon. One evening, Rin was repairing a small solar panel outside his home when he noticed a familiar silver glow on the horizon. At first he thought it was a reflection of the sun on the dunes, but as it grew brighter he realized it was a ship. Talonra's ship. He dropped his tools, his heart beating faster. The ship descended gracefully, settling on the sand with a soft hum. The door opened and Talonra stepped out wearing lighter armor, her silver eyes calm and welcoming. "Rin," she said softly, her voice carrying over the warm desert air. "I came to see you." Rin blinked. "You came here. Why?" "Because," she said, walking toward him. "The stars feel empty without someone to talk to. You reminded me of what is important, and I wanted to thank you properly." Rin smiled faintly, feeling a warmth he had not felt in years. "You're welcome, but you've changed the galaxy now. You don't need to thank me." She shook her head. "I do, because without your help, without your trust, I might have forgotten what truly matters. You saved me, not just physically, but in spirit." They walked together through the desert dunes, talking quietly. Talonra told Rin stories of her empire's transformation, of the world she had helped, and of the citizens who had begun to trust her not for fear, but for hope. Rin listened in awe. "I can't believe it. You've done all this, just because of one human?" Talonra laughed softly. "It was not one human alone. It was the choice to act with care, even when no one else would. That choice inspired me. That choice changed me, and that change is now spreading throughout the galaxy." Rin felt proud, though he tried not to show it. "I'm just me," he said. "I didn't do anything special." "You did more than you realize," Talonra said, her eyes softening. "You reminded me that even the smallest acts can have great consequences, that sometimes strength lies in the gentlest hands." As they walked, Talonra looked up at the stars. "I will not stay long," she said. "The Empire calls and my people need me, but I wanted to see this place one last time." "And you," Rin nodded. "I understand, but you can come back any time." She smiled, a small, genuine smile that lit her face. "I will, and perhaps one day you will see the stars as I do, not just as distant lights, but as worlds full of people who can be helped, who can be inspired, who can be changed." Rin laughed softly. "I like that thought." The next day, Talonra's ship rose into the sky, her engines glowing faintly as she ascended. Rin watched silently, the desert wind brushing against his face. She waved once, then the ship vanished among the stars. For Rin, life returned to quiet routines. But something had shifted. He now knew that even the simplest human, living alone in a desert, could touch the life of someone extraordinary. That even small actions, small choices could ripple across the galaxy and change its course. Meanwhile, across the Zeran Dominion, Talonra's presence brought hope. Soldiers who once feared her now respected her. Citizens who once trembled at the mention of her empire now trusted its leadership. The galaxy began to see that the strongest warrior did not need to rule with fear, but with understanding. And every decision Talonra made was influenced by Rin's example. Kindness, courage, and trust. Months later, Rin was sitting outside his home, repairing a small hover drone, when he noticed a familiar light flickering in the night sky. At first he thought it was another passing ship, but it slowly descended and he realized it was her again. Telenra landed gently beside him, her armor polished, her presence calm and reassuring. "You still fix things, even after all this?" she asked, smiling. "I do," Rin said, putting down his tools. "Some things don't change." "Good," she said, "because there are still worlds to inspire and still people to protect. And perhaps if you are willing, you can help me in small ways again." Rin laughed softly. "I suppose I can do that. But mostly I'll stay here fixing what I can." "Then I will visit," Telenra said, her voice warm. "And perhaps together, we will see the galaxy not as it is, but as it could be." For the first time, Rin realized the full impact of his actions. He had not only saved a life, but had reminded a galactic leader of what it truly meant to be powerful. Strength was not only measured in battles won or enemies defeated. True strength, he saw, was in compassion, understanding, and trust. And the galaxy, wide and vast as it was, had changed because of a simple human in a desert and a wounded Empress who dared to be guided by kindness. Telenra looked at Rin one last time before ascending into the stars. "Remember," she said softly, "even one human can change the galaxy." Rin smiled, feeling the weight of her words. "I will remember," he said quietly. The ship rose into the night sky, leaving twin trails of silver light across the stars. The desert returned to its quiet calm, but the ripple of that small act of kindness would stretch across worlds through time and into the hearts of those who believed that even in the darkest galaxy, hope could shine. And somewhere among the stars, a human and an Empress shared a bond that no distance, no power, and no time could ever break. The galaxy had been reminded that courage, loyalty, and kindness could be stronger than the strongest weapon, and that even a small hand, extended without expectation, could hold the fate of worlds in balance.